Hey, what's up everyone? Morey Croson here, and today we're going to be talking about how to hold the football, and we're going to start the video right now. This is the newest edition of the Performance Lab.
Reach your individual goals. We don't want to just talk about straight line speed. We also want to talk about your ability to be quick. We break down your video. Let's make you into the quarterback I know you can become.
All right, so this is something that, in some of the recent breakdowns, like always, we've been going a lot more in detail about, just because, I think when it comes to being able to really add a lot of distance into your throw, you have to be able to understand where you want to have your wrist as you are releasing the ball. And, there's a lot of guys, we do different types of wrist drills, wrist exercises, things like that to help you in, getting to the right position with the wrist. But, I think some of the times what ends up happening is, guys don't really understand exactly how to be able to hold the ball in order to make it so they could have some consistent success. And so we'll go over some of the things that I've been seeing here recently that I think are contributing to, not being able to put as much consistency within the throw distance, or, maybe making it so it's harder to be able to get your wrist into, the correct position. And the first thing that I would say is, when we're going in and trying to grab the football, we want to be able to be as a neutral position of the wrist as possible. Right, so you don't want to end up, you don't want to end up being too much here, because once we're here with the football, so these are going to be the guys that are going to have a little bit lower thumb position and a little bit higher index finger position, right? So I'll get a little bit closer. So if your thumb's a little bit low or your index finger is too close to the tip, now what that's going to do, it's going to make it so you're holding the ball like this. So that's going to make it more difficult to be able to get to that neutral position, overall. And there's a lot of guys, especially that have, maybe bigger hands, that could feel comfortable with at first. But I'm saying, like, as you're coming through and going through that throw, I see where you just end up being here and you release the ball here, right? Where we want to be able to get more on top of the football here and be able to get, that release position when we're throwing the ball 20 yards and even when we're throwing the ball deep. Because now, when you reposition your wrist and you're able to get, here, you can still, throw a deeper pass like this. But when you are stuck like in this position, then when you try to throw that deeper throw, you're going to end up getting just way too much air under it, right? You want to be able to get a, lot of velocity behind it as well as some height to it. So, getting in that neutral position, or maybe even slightly, again, guys with bigger hands, you could be a little bit more, kind of forward with your wrist, which is just going to be, that pinky almost being a little bit, down away from the laces. I do think it's important overall, though, to be able to have that pinky somewhat close to the laces. You don't want to end up being too turned here where that pinky gets really, really low. So you also don't want to be too high with that thumb where now that pinky ends up being really low overall on the football, right? Because now that's going to also do the same type of thing. You could be in, somewhat of a neutral position there, but if that pinky ends up being too low, just based off how you're spread out, now you're going to end up having some more of a grip issue and not be able to have that same type of gap that you want to have, in with your hands and you're going through the actual throw. I mean, it could work out to some degree if you have really big hands, but for the most part, you want to be, again, with some degree of a neutral position, and you also want to make sure that that wrist can go and fully flex or get into a somewhat flexed position. You'll be able to maintain the grip when you're doing that, right? So when you're here, you don't want to have any, too much flexion here, or, feel like you have to, hold in this position too much. We want to be neutral, right, with that wrist. And then, from there, that is going to end up being a great solid point where you can then, take everything and apply it into the underneath throws, the mid throws, and the deep throws. So just make sure, that you're able to consistently get a wrist position where the hand is neutral. I really try to spread out my fingers the best that I can to make it so I can really get a good grip on the ball. Most of the gap that's happening here, is going to be kind of index finger based, right? It's going to be here. There's not too much gap that's happening there, right? And then from there, make sure that you have a good grip on, this part of the knuckles, right? So you can see, I think that there ends up being sometimes where you don't have as much pressure on, that last, third or half, for your thumb, it's a half. For the other fingers, it's going to be the third. So that last third wants to have a good connection with the football. Right, you don't want to have an inability to feel in those areas, right? So you have to have a good feel of that top part of the thumb, because sometimes I'll see people kind of come off with the thumb or come off with some of their index fingers, not have as much grip with those index fingers. You want, or the top of the fingers, right? You want to have a great connection with that top part of the finger to really make sure that as you're going through, you're able to maintain a consistent grip, right? When you lose a grip, it's because one of these fingers start to come off, right? So you've got to be able to push well through those. And again, extend, right? Extend through those fingers, extend through the thumb so you can grab as much of the football that you can, and then the pressure ends up being there, and that makes it so then you can get that gap. Right? That's what allows there to be the gap, is the pressure within the fingers, right? So the more I grab there, better position within the football, right? So if you're going and you're just grabbing and not putting very much pressure in the top part of the fingers, then that will end up making it so then you're going to try not to grab as much of the football to be able to get more of a grip, which isn't good. You should be trying to grab as much of the football as you can, but still maintain that grip by being able to push through, you know, that top third of the finger. So that should be really, really beneficial for some of you guys that might be, you know, struggling with getting into consistent wrist position, because now it'll be a lot easier to be able to feel how your wrist is going when you can start to be able to connect, I think, a little bit more with how you're actually grabbing the football and making sure that you're able to, you know, have a great, again, grip connection. Those are the things that you're looking to try to get here in being able to establish what is the, you know, best way for you to hold the football. Now I would say, you know, for a lot of you guys, you can make some small tweaks into, you know, how you're holding the ball, and it could really make a big difference to, you know, how far you're throwing it or how much velocity you're adding onto the football. So just be aware of, you know, that particular part of, you know, how you are picking up the ball every single time, right? There wants to be, you know, as much consistency there, and you want to be able to utilize some of those concepts to make sure that you know, you are adding distance to your throw. So if there's things that are happening here where, you know, you're not able to consistently feel maybe your index come off of the football, or maybe, you know, you're throwing with more of, you know, your ring finger, or, you know, you're really in this U position, there could be realignment of your grip that could really make a big difference here. You know, as you're continuing to move forward. So I hope that makes sense to you. I hope it ends up being beneficial. If it is, go ahead and click that thumbs up down below. Subscribe to the channel. If you have any questions, comments, or recommendations, you can leave those down below. And check out that Throw 60 program, guys. I really think that that's going to be a great thing for you to be able to, you know, utilize to help you in improving your throwing distance. At the end of the day, being able to throw the ball 60 yards is going to be a critical part of your overall development as a quarterback. If you can't get to, you know, above 55, you know, into that 60, 65-yard range, and you are a sophomore, junior, something like that, you know, put more focus on your mechanics, put more of an emphasis on, you know, really trying to understand how to be able to properly sequence your body. We're getting guys that are getting really, really good results. I'm going to post a video here in the next couple days for you guys to be able to see some of those results and, you know, really get an idea of what you could do in your training overall. Because, you know, if you are not putting the time into actually throwing the ball further, I think you're doing yourself a huge disservice. I think that was a big mistake that I made when I was in high school, was, you know, not focused enough on how far I was throwing the football, and was putting too much of a focus on like accuracy and, you know, timing or you know, being able to throw the three-step drop. That stuff's important for sure, but what's going to get you onto the biggest stage, what's going to get you exposure on the highest levels, is going to be your throwing velocity, is going to be your throwing distance. And so you want to make sure you're putting some time into that. This is not something that's going to take away from what you're doing in terms of, you know, quarterback development. This is only going to add to your overall exposure. So, you know, don't think that by doing this you're not going to be able to work with some of the other, you know, quarterback coaches or do the things that you might be doing, you know, on the weekends or things like that. This is only going to help you get more exposure and help you be able to throw the ball with more consistency and understand what is it you need to work on. And those breakdowns really make a big difference with it. I get that all the time, where it's like, it helps so much to be able to see it slowed down in a few different angles. And I do this all the time, guys. So it's not like something I'm going and guessing at. It's something I'm constantly doing, so you could really get a lot of great information and get a lot of great understanding. And a few simple tweaks could easily add, you know, 5 yards on the throw. You know, just getting guys to get going within the first week or two, they're already talking about how they're adding yards, already talking about adding distances. So, you know, as you continue through over 12 weeks, you know, if you can gain another, you know, yard or two every single week, think about how much farther you can throw the football overall. So I wouldn't be talking so much about it if I didn't believe in what the results are and how much better it can make you as a quarterback. So go ahead and check out the link down below in order to find out more about that, and looking forward to talking to you soon.